Hello everyone, welcome back to this amazing platform of Infinity Learn by Sri Chaitanya. I'm back with another interesting session from chapter number 11 of your 11th class NCERT biology textbook. The chapter name is Transport in Plant, and the very important topic that we are going to discuss in this class is long distance transport. I hope this much is clear to everyone. Yes, guys? Okay, so as you can see on the board, let me tell you who's there. Hello, Rohit. Welcome to this session. Yeah, just give me one moment. So yes guys, if till now you haven't subscribed to Infinity Learn by Sri Chaitanya YouTube channel, I request you all to consider subscribing to Infinity Learn. And also hit the bell icon so that whenever I will go live, you will be notified and won't miss any single session in future. And this video is part of our very new and fresh series, the Chak Day series, where we every day provide you live lectures, right, related to biology, physics, chemistry, as well as mathematics, right? Yeah, so I am here to discuss all these lecture contents, and I want everybody to pay attention to this slide. Yeah. So see kids, what are we going to do in this class? We are going to discuss, I think yellow will be better, right? Yeah. Yeah. So first of all, I will give you an overview of what long transport is, and there I will also tell you why exactly plants need a long distance transport system, why the short transport system that we discussed, I mean the means of short distance transport like simple diffusion, facilitated diffusion and active diffusion were not enough. This is what we are going to discuss, right? So I will give you a short or a brief explanation about what long distance transport is and why short distance transport wasn't enough to transport substances from root to the leaf or from leaf to the distant organs like root. Then, secondly, we will discuss that how water is absorbed by plants. Specifically talking about the one who is responsible is the root, right? So then we will talk about, after taking the overview of the long distance transport, we will try to understand, my dear students, that how exactly water is absorbed by the plants, right? There I will talk about the two pathways, the symplast and the epiplast pathway. With the help of them, I'm going to explain you how water will be transported from soil solution to the root xylem. Secondly, in the third part, I will discuss about water movement up a plant. That means we will understand, my kids, how water will be transported from root xylem up to the leaf xylem, right? So how water is transported because of the which forces that helps water to undercome the gravitational force and actually pulls the water, which force is the one which actually pulls the water up making the water reach from the root xylem to the leaf xylem. So most important part of this lecture lies over here. And finally, if time permits, I will explain you the ascent of sap, right? The theory, the transpiration pull model, cohesion, tension, transpiration, pull model, how it explains the ascent of sap. So if time permits, I will explain you this, or otherwise this will become the topic of our next lecture. So I hope this much is pretty clear to everyone. It is very important, my kids, to understand what exactly we are going to do in this session. Tell me, is this okay? Is this okay? Hello, Rishi. Yeah, Rishi is saying the suction. Right, this is what we're going to talk about, Rishi, when I am going to explain you about water movement, right? Upper plant. Now, let us see the next thing. The very first overview part that I am going to explain you. So, see, kids, I want everybody to have a look on this image. This beautiful image that has been created to help you in imagining what exactly we are talking about when I refer to long distance transport. So let me give you a brief overview of long distance transport. Right, my kids? Okay. Now see, students, whenever we talk about long distance transport, we generally talk about what? We generally talk about the movement of one, water along with minerals. So I just want my kids, if the ink is properly visible or not, do let me know in the chat section. Okay, the ink is properly visible or not, right? I'm using the yellow one. Is yellow okay for you, or should I go for red? I think only these two options we have on this background, so let me know, okay, in the starting, whether this yellow ink is perfect for your eyes or not. Second, we will talk about the transport of the sugars, right? The photosynthates that are produced during photosynthesis process. So see, students, when we talk about the movement of water along with minerals, this generally takes place from root to the leaf, right? And the tissues, the complex tissues that are responsible for doing it is the xylem. And when we talk about the transport of sugar, my kids, we generally talk about the transfer of sugars from the organs that are producing the sugar, that is the leaf, to the organs that will store it. Although it goes in all the body parts, all the different body parts of the plant, and specifically or mainly we can talk about the storage organs that can be present in the root as well, right? So sugar transport will take place from leaf to the root and other parts of the plant with the help of phloem, right? So this is what we actually talk about when we refer to long distance transport, right? Now, the very first question that should come to your mind is, my kids, hello, okay, fine. I am unable to pronounce your name, beta. Okay, I'm sorry. Hello, everyone. Is your name Amulya? If I am pronouncing it wrong, please let me know in the chat section. I would love to correct myself, Amulya, if I'm wrong. Give me a thumbs up if I'm pronouncing it right. Now, students, the very first question that should come to your mind is, till now, before understanding or before this topic long distance transport is introduced in your NCERT, we talk about means of short distance transport, means of transport, that is simple diffusion, facilitated diffusion, active diffusion. All three are what? All three are means of short distance transport. Then we talk about water potential, osmosis, right? All these are what? All these helps the water to move, or the substances to move over a short distance, right? So let me tell you, students, the short distance transport, that is the facilitated diffusion, simple diffusion, and the active transport, can at max move substances within a plant cell or between two plant cells, right? So, and if I talk about the speed, it is also given, the example is also given in your NCERT, like for a process like diffusion, in order to cross a distance of 50 micrometer, something that is not even visible, the distance that is not even visible to your naked eye, the diffusion might take a time of 2.5 seconds. Now imagine such a small distance that is not even visible to our naked eye. Diffusion process will take 2.5 seconds to do that, right? So can you imagine the speed, how slow the diffusion is? So here comes the need of a long distance transport system that is very much needed to transport substances over long distances, like transporting water and minerals from root to the leaf, and transporting the photosynthetics, the sugars that are produced during photosynthesis process, from leaf to the other parts of the plant like roots, right? So these are very long distances, and such long distances cannot take place, or the processes like diffusion, the active transport, are just not enough. If plants uses these means the diffusion and the active transport to transport water, minerals and food, it will take a very, very, very long time, and that is going to be appreciated, right? And here comes the importance of long distance transport, where the long distance transport system works to transport substances within xylem and phloem. And let me tell you, students, right now the long distance transport system that is used via xylem and phloem to transport their respective substances is the mass flow or bulk flow system. Yes, you heard it right. So mass flow or bulk flow system is the long distance transport system that helps to transport substances over a long distance, that means from root to leaf or leaf to root, right? I hope this much is clear to all of you. This is all about the overview that I wanted to give. So in this image you can imagine like water, minerals will be transported from root to the leaf. Then photosynthetes, like the sugar molecules that are produced here in the leaf parts of the plant, will be transported from leaf to the root. So you can understand how long the distances are, and the simple diffusion, facilitated diffusion and active transport are just not enough to do them, right? I hope this much is clear. Now let us try to understand the other important facts and characteristics related to long distance transport. And here it comes. The very first one, I have already explained you this. So let me read out for you. It says, all these are lines from NCERT. Diffusion is a slow process. I already explained you how it takes 2.5 seconds to cross a distance of 50 micrometer. Hello Ariman, good afternoon, very warm welcome in this session. Next that we need to understand is, students, so diffusion is a very slow process and it can account for only short distance movement of molecules. That means like within the short distance transport that diffusion is capable of doing is transporting substances like water, minerals, other substances as well within a plant cell or between two cells, right? Next, Water, minerals and food are generally moved by a mass flow or bulk flow system, which is actually the long distance transport system that plants are going to use, right? I hope this much is clear. Do let me know in the chat section, students, whenever you want me to repeat any line, any concept again. I have 10 different ways to make you understand a single concept or a line of NCERT, but the point is I can do that only and only when you ask for it. So please feel free to ask any kind of doubt related to the subject. Now let us see what we need to discuss on the next slide. Yeah, so the other important characteristics of mass flow is, students, mass flow is what? In mass flow, the movement of substances is from one point to another because of pressure difference. Very important line, because of the pressure difference. So for example, as you can see, my kids, this is what? This is xylem. This is what? This is phloem. Now you can see these blue arrows are going up. So in xylem, the water and minerals are transported from root to the leaf xylem, right? That means here if I consider P1 and here I consider this point. Now let us consider 2 points over here in xylem as well as phloem. So for example, this is a point over a random point over here in a xylem, and this is another point over here, that is P2, right? I hope you can see that. If you're unable to see the ink, let me know, I'll change the color. So this is P1 and this is P2. Now listen, the water and minerals need to be transported from root to the leaf. That means the potential or the pressure that is present on P1 should be greater than the P2, right? So whenever, my kids, we talk about xylem, P1 and P2, P1 should be greater. Whenever P1 will be greater, only then the substances can be moved to the another region or the part where the pressure is P2, right? Now let us talk about phloem. Here if I talk about, this one is P2 and this one is P1, right? Let me keep the number same so that you do not get confused. Now here in phloem, the photosynthates, the sugars need to be transported from leaf to the root, right? For example, the storage organ that I'm talking about is a root. So here for photosynthates or sugars to be transported from leaf to the root, it is very important that the pressure from where the transport is going to start should be, or the region from where the transport is going to start should be at a higher pressure. So here P2 will be greater than P1. Only then the substances can move towards the lower position, right? So mass flow, I repeat myself, this is what you needed to understand in order, or this is the prerequisite you needed to understand this line, that this is a pure NCERT line which reads like, mass flow is the movement of substances in bulk. That means collectively a lot of substances move together in bulk together. Substances move togetherly, right? Or in n masses from one point to another as a result of pressure differences between 2 points, right? So give me a thumbs up if this much is clear to all of you. Hello Akash, very warm welcome in this class. So how about Rohit, Akash, Amulya, Ariman, letting me know, is this much clear? Let me know if it is not. I would love to repeat it for any one of you. Now, let me continue this mass flow, the concept of mass flow, where now I would love to discuss about the characteristics of the substances or characteristics of a mass flow. So we will talk about what are the characteristics of mass flow as well as what are the characteristics that are possessed by the substances that use mass flow or bulk flow as a medium of transport. So Ariman is saying clear. Thank you very much for Let me know that. Okay. Hello, Ankita. Good. Chaliye. Now let us talk about first thing. See, students, whenever we talk about mass flow or bulk flow, so what happens? Hello, Angrila. Am I reading it right? Salam. Angrila? Is your name Angrila? Am I pronouncing it right, Angrila? Let me know. Let me know. Chali. Right? Okay, perfect. Okay, students. So what I want to explain over here is that the substances that uses bulk flow or mass flow system to get transported, all the substances in a bulk flow or mass flow will be transported with the same speed. For example, let me give you an example over here. So this is a river. For example, this is a river. So you are standing over here. Now if you throw like flowers in the river, if you throw like ash, right? So like similarly you can throw like, for example, leaves. Don't throw rubbish, plastic, etc. I don't endorse that, but I need to give some examples, so that is why I'm giving some organic examples, right? So for example, you're standing on the bank of the river and you throw these three things. Now you will note, students, in a river, the substances move with the help of a bulk flow or a mass flow. And whether it is ash, whether it is flower, whether it is leaves, whatever is present and that is flowing with the help of a mass flow, all type of substances, irrespective of their concentration gradient, will flow at the same speed in the same direction, right? So this is what is one of the very important characteristics of a mass flow, that substances, whether it is in solution or in a suspension, all are swept, all are carried, all move togetherly at the same pace, at the same speed, just like how things flow in a river, right? So it's not like something you drop in a river, so things, or for example, a river is having a lot of contamination. That doesn't mean that few things will flow at a slow speed and few things or few substances will flow at a higher speed. Hello, Abhirami. Thank you very much, Abhirami, for considering me your favorite botany teacher. You took long leave? I miss. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. But I am back with another interesting session. So let us enjoy this session, Abhirami. And I've just started it. So I'm just discussing the basics of mass flow. So stay connected. Right. Thank you. Next is the different substances do not move independently depending on the concentration gradient. Very, very important. So this second line, my kids, is actually in continuation with the first one only. Now you must be thinking, how? So what I told you, whenever substances are moving with the help of mass flow, for example, when substances like water and minerals move in a xylem, so all substances that are flowing in a xylem with the help of mass flow or bulk flow, they will be carried from root to the leaf all with the same speed. That doesn't mean that some solutes will be carried slower and some will be faster. No, all will move with the same speed, right? So substances in a mass flow do not move according to their concentration gradient, and this is exactly which is opposite when it comes to the diffusion part. Now let me help you to understand. This is a very beautiful line actually, students, so I want you to explain it in a little more detail. So this is exactly different or opposite. This is exactly opposite to what happens in diffusion. So remember, my kids, when I taught you diffusion, what did I tell you? Let me draw this for you to make you understand. Thank you. So for example, let me draw. Yeah, so I hope This portion must be visible to you. And for example, consider this is a chamber, right? And here you have a partition, right? I'm explaining you what am I going to do now? I'm going to explain you what a diffusion is and how in a diffusion substances move according to their concentration gradient. So if you did not attend that class of diffusion, I request you go and check out the botany playlist, and you will find the very first lecture on transport in plant. There I discussed about diffusion, and one very important property I discussed about diffusion over there is here the substances, when they are transported or diffusing, the substances diffuse, the different substances diffuse, the various substances diffuse depending upon their concentration gradient. So for example, here I have yellow molecules representing oxygen gas, and I have some red molecules representing to the CO2. Now if you notice, CO2 molecules are here more. This is CO2, right? And this is O2. Now if you notice, if this is A part and this is B part, if you notice in the A part or A side of this chamber, oxygen gas is in higher concentration and CO2 is in less, because the red bubbles or molecules are less, rather I should say molecules. And on the B side, if you notice, the red color molecules are higher and the yellow one are less. That means concentration of oxygen is higher on A side and lower on B side. Similarly, CO2 concentration is higher on B side and lower on A side. So if these gases are moving with the help of diffusion, what will happen? Oxygen will diffuse from chamber A or from side A to side B, and CO2 will diffuse from B to side A. So this is how O2 will move and this is how CO2 move. What did you notice, my kids? You notice that in diffusion, different substances move according to their concentration gradient, and this is exactly opposite when it comes to mass flow. In a mass flow, all substances that are flowing or using the mass flow or bulk flow system to move, all will move with the same speed, and they will not move independently according to their concentration gradient. So I hope students, now after understanding this whole concept, this whole example, I hope now you must be clear that how and what exactly this line means with respect to mass flow and how this line contradicts when it comes to diffusion. So give me a thumbs up. Kindly use yellow ink. Color is not visible. Sure, Angrila, I will use the yellow ink only. Thank you for letting me know that. So students, I want you to give me a thumbs up if this line is clear to all of you, because this is very, very important, that substances in a mass flow do not move independently according to their concentration gradient. All the substances in a mass flow will be swept, will move together with the same speed, right? And this mass flow is actually faster than the diffusion and active transport, and this is the property that we actually require in a mass flow. Not to forget that, because diffusion and active transport were really slow, right? So let us see what we need to discuss next. So let us see now, students, what are the reasons because of which the mass flow can be generated. So the conditions required to achieve mass flow is, so mass flow of the substances inside a plant cell, or inside a plant body rather I should say betterly. So mass flow inside a plant body can actually be achieved, my kids, with the help of two types of conditions. It can be because of a positive hydrostatic pressure, or it can be because of negative hydrostatic pressure. Now I would love to explain these two conditions that causes mass flow in a plant body. That means a positive hydrostatic pressure gradient and a negative hydrostatic pressure gradient, with the help of some easily relatable example. For example, here, see this. If you can see, what is this? This is a garden hose, right? And here, if you notice, What is this? This is a pipe. This pipe must be connected to some source. This is some source, means this pipe is connected either to a water tank or something where a lot of water is stored. So if you notice here, the water is coming out with a very high speed, with a very high pressure, right? So in a garden hose, there is a positive hydrostatic pressure gradient, because of which water comes out and flow to another region where there is low pressure, right? So this is how a positive hydrostatic pressure gradient is responsible for doing the bulk movement of water molecule. Now let us take another example where a negative hydrostatic pressure gradient helps in moving the substances in bulk or creating the mass flow, and that is the suction through a straw. So for example, if this is a glass of a cold drink, right, and here you have, or a juice, right, so here you have straw, right? So here is what? Here is the whole source, the cold drink or your juice. So here lot of pressure, and here there is nothing until and unless you actually try to suck, right? So here is the pressure point 2. So what happens here when you actually put the straw in your mouth and try to suck, the liquid rises up. So this movement, this bulk flow or mass flow of the cold drink or juice in a straw is because of the negative hydrostatic pressure, right? I hope this much is clear to all of you, that these are the two important conditions or requirements because of which mass flow can be achieved, either due to positive hydrostatic pressure gradient or a negative hydrostatic pressure gradient. Now, one more thing I want you to understand is that this negative hydrostatic pressure gradient, also you can call it as a tension is present in xylem, right? And it is one of the very important force, one of the very important factor that is responsible for pulling water from root xylem to the leaf xylem, right? And this is exactly what I am going to explain in detail when I'm going to explain you the transpiration pull model, the ascent of sap. So please remember that water is actually pulled from root xylem to leaf xylem due to the presence of this negative water potential values of water, or negative water potential of negative free energy of water in the leaf, because of which there is a mass flow of water from root xylem to leaf xylem. So it is this negative tension, or it is this negative hydrostatic pressure gradient that causes the water transport up a plant. Tell me kids, is this okay? Is this okay? Is there anyone who is still not okay with any of the line, any of the concept? Please feel free to ask, my kids. Let me know this much is okay or not. I want, how about Abhirami, Ariman and Grila, Amulya and Rohit letting me know, Ankita letting me know what exactly is the situation from your side. Let me know, kids. Is there anything you want me to repeat? Feel free to ask. Okay, so I would love to continue then. So now let us talk about in detail what translocation is. So see students, translocation is nothing different. Listen, translocation term is given to the transport of substances that take place via xylem or phloem through mass flow system, right? Like, for example, this is what? This is xylem. This is your xylem. And this is your phloem. Now, what happens in a xylem? Water, see, mainly water, mineral salts, some organic nitrogen and hormones from the soil via root will reach with the help of xylem to the leaf part. This is what? This is translocation. Now, similarly, sucrose that are produced during photosynthesis in leaf from leaf will be transported to the root and other plant parts as well with the help of phloem, with the help of bulk flow or mass flow. And in this phloem, what will flow? Not only sucrose but a variety of other organic as well as inorganic solute. So what is translocation? Translocation simply means, my kids, movement of various substances through these vascular tissues or vascular system, where substances are moving with the help of bulk flow or mass flow system. And that's exactly what translocation means. I hope you can read out this. So bulk movement of substances through the conducting tissues or vascular tissues is actually known as translocation. So I really hope with this diagram none of you will ever in future get confused with what exactly translocation means. Perfect. Now let me see what I have to explain you the next. Okay, so let us see what we need to understand next. Yeah, so kids, till now what we have done is we took the overview of what exactly long transport means. Right now, let us understand how water will move from soil, how water will move into the root xylem. See kids, before jumping into the detail of this topic, one more thing that you need to understand is whenever we talk about movement of water, in a plant, there are two aspects to it. First, the water need to be transported. Water need to be transported from soil to root xylem. And then water need to be transported from root xylem to stem xylem. Simple. Movement of water from soil to root xylem and then from root xylem to stem xylem. This is exactly what we need to understand. Yes. So see. So this is what we will discuss in the second portion, and this is what we will discuss in the third point, right? So now let us see how exactly water will be transported from soil to the root xylem in this topic, where we talk about how do plants absorb water. So we will see that water is present over here, right? This is all soil. This is all soil that is present in the surrounding of the root hair cell. So let us see how water from the soil reaches to the root xylem. This is what we will discuss in this section, the second one, right? And the third one will be where we will understand how water moves from root xylem to stem xylem and then further to the leaf xylem. And this is what exactly is known as movement of water up the plant, right? So now let us see how water is absorbed by plants. Right kids? So see over here, whenever absorption of water we generally talk about who is responsible for absorbing water. It is the root, and that is the reason why you water the plants. Where exactly? You give water to the roots, to the soil portion. Why? Because inside the soil, the root portion or the root system of the plant is present, and these roots are actually responsible for absorbing water or capable of absorbing water from the soil. Now, more specifically talking about root, students, it is the root hair cells that are present in millions over these roots, right? So talking specifically, who is going to do the maximum absorption of water from soil, right? So who is going to absorb? It is the millions of root hair cells. And what are root hair cells? They are simply the extension of the outermost layer present on the root, that's the epidermis. So the epidermal cells will elongate, will extend and form these fine thread-like structures in millions of number that will actually do the absorption. Now the obvious question that should come to your mind is why root hair cells are important or play major role in absorbing water. So listen this carefully, students. Actually, the surface area of the root hairs is quite high. So presence of millions of root hairs on the roots actually increases the surface area to a larger extent, and this increased surface area because of the presence of millions of root hairs actually helps in efficient absorbing of water along with the minerals, right? So that's the importance of root hairs when it comes to absorb water. So let me read out all this for you. So if you notice this, students, let us focus first on this diagram. This is a beautiful diagram of root, right? And these fine thread-like structures that you can see is the root hairs. And here is what the root hair is actually zoomed. So this is the zoom portion. Now yellow color must not be visible. So this is the zoom out portion of a root hair. This is a zoom out portion of a root hair. So if you notice, my kids, this is the root hair, the extension of the epidermal cell, right? And it is surrounded by water, minerals, right? These root hairs are surrounded by water, minerals and soil, right? From here the water will be absorbed. Now let me read out these points. These are pretty simple. Now I have explained all these lines right now. So let me read out for you, just for your sake. So whenever we talk about absorption of water, specifically these are the root hairs that are responsible for absorption of water and minerals. And please note the students, the absorption of water by the roots or root hairs will be purely via diffusion. So diffusion is the process that will be responsible for absorbing water, will be responsible for or helping the root hairs to absorb water. Please remember, it will be purely via diffusion. Next. Now these root hairs are actually present in millions at the tips of the roots. I have already explained this point. They are thin walled, slender and extensions of root epidermal cells, and they greatly increase the surface area of absorption, right? Is this clear? All these points I have already explained, but do remember that the absorption of water and minerals will be purely via diffusion. Next. Yeah. So note this, students, once the water is absorbed by the root hairs, once the water is taken up by the root hair cells, then it will be free, and then it will move into the deeper layers of the root. So if you are able to recollect, I request you to recollect your concepts from anatomy of roots. So if you remember, students, that who is the outermost layer? Outermost layer in a root is actually the epidermis, right? So from epidermis to the root xylem, there are several layers of cells present. So water actually need to cross these several layers from epidermis in order to reach out the root xylem, where the water needs to be accumulated so that it can be transported to the stem xylem and then to the leaf xylem. So from epidermis there is presence of cortex, then there is I need to change the ink, then there is cortex, then endodermis, pericycle, and then finally you get the root xylem. So see students, each and every cell here is representing to each and every layer that is actually present between the epidermis and the root xylem, where the water need to be transported. So what the NCERT is actually trying to say is that once the water is absorbed by the root hairs, it will move deeper into the layer. That means it will cross the cortex, endodermis, pericycle, etc. by 2 distinct pathways, that is epiplast and symplast. So listen this carefully now, students. Epiplast and symplast are the two types of pathways that water can take in order to reach to the root xylem, which is exactly the destination, right? From where the water will be transported to the stem as well as to the leaf xylem. Now kids, the point is, the most obvious question that should come to your mind is, which path the plant will take, the epiplast or the symplast or both, etc. Such are the questions that should come to your mind. Now listen this very carefully, students. Which path is actually preferred, like water when it is trying to dive deep into the root layers? It will choose epiplast over symplast or symplast over epiplast. All this will depend upon several conditions. For example, the major one is the water potential gradient. So if water potential gradient is more in epiplast pathway, the water will majorly move via epiplast. If it is more in symplast, it will move via symplast. So who is the deciding force? It is the value of water potential gradient. It is the value of water potential gradient that will actually decide that which path water will take, epiplast or symplast. This is one very important condition. And then there are several other conditions as well. For example, when I talk about endodermis, this endodermis has a layer or a strip of suberin on its radial and tangential wall, which actually do not allow water to cross this particular layer of it or cross these particular cells present in the endodermis with the help of epiplast. So water is bound to move strictly via symplast in order to cross the endodermis layer and reach to the root xylem. So there are several conditions as well that I told you. One I have already explained, but the major one that decides whether plant will take the epiplast or symplast is the value of the water potential gradient. Now students, I have given you enough overview about what epiplast and symplast is. Now let us try to understand in detail what exactly epiplast is made up of and what are the characteristics, how water moves in epiplast pathway and symplast pathway, right? So this is a beautiful diagram. With the help of this only I can explain, but let me explain you on the next slide where I am going to explain it in more detail, right? So see, what is epiplastic system? Epiplastic system is a system where water moves in the spaces that are present between the adjacent cell, as well as it is formed by the cell wall, space of the cell wall. So remember this students, in epiplastic pathway, water will actually move with the help of the spaces which are present between the two cells and also the spaces that is available in the cell wall, right? So epiplast system is a system of adjacent cell wall and it is actually continuous, but there's an exception where I have already explained you. The exception will come when the water will reach to the endodermis, to the cells of endodermis, because they have strips of Casparian strips made up of suberin, which suberin is impervious to water. It won't allow water to move through the cell wall spaces when it comes to the cells of endodermis. So whenever the water need to cross the endodermal layer, it has to strictly follow the pathway of symplast. So it is the place where the endodermis layer is the place where the epiplastic system is actually hampered or actually get discontinued, right? So what is epiplastic system? System of adjacent cell wall. Now in this diagram, if you can see students, there's a brown color and there's a little darker brown shade and a little simple or a lighter brown shade. So if you notice students, this darker brown shade is present here on the wall portion, So whenever water takes the path, or water along with the minerals follow or flow through these, let me change the ink, through these cell wall spaces, through these cell wall spaces, this is known as epoplast. This is known as epoplast. And if you notice, students, the epoplast was continuous from this point to this point, but finally this epoplast pathway got discontinued. When it come to the endodermal layer, where the water molecules were actually bound to cross or bound to follow strictly the symplastic pathway, where this water is actually entering inside the cytoplasm, which wasn't doing it when it was crossing the other layers of cells present in epidermis and cortex. So it is because of the presence of this Casparian strip, the epoplast pathway is discontinuous. It has to enter into the endodermis in order to reach to the root xylem. So this is what epoplast system means. Next, let us talk about some characteristics of epiplastic movement of water. First, it occurs exclusively through the intercellular spaces that I have already told you, and with the help of the walls of the cells. So whenever we talk about or you listen about epiplastic movement of water, that means it will be via either through the space that is present between two cells as well as through the cell wall, right? Through the cell wall. Now, here, whenever the water is moving with the help of epoplast, it does not involve crossing the cell membrane. Yes, you saw this. What is this? This is the darker brown shade where you can see water is not entering the cytoplasm, rather it is moving on the peripheral part, which is made up of cell wall portion as well the space present between the two cells, right? The intercellular space and the space of the cell wall. And just it is this layer, the cells of endodermis, where the epoplast or the water actually need to enter into the endodermal layer. So before this, it was quite free to move. Water along with the mineral was quite free to move with the help of epiplastic pathway. Very important. Well, whether it is symplast or epoplast, this characteristic is going to be common in both, that water will flow from this point to this point, from P1 to P2, because of strictly the water potential gradient. The water will move along the water potential gradient. That means water, if it is flowing from epidermis to endodermis or to the root xylem, that's simply because the water potential values or the free energy of the water is higher over here or higher in the water on the soil solution in comparison to the one that is present in the xylem. So whether water is either flowing via epoplast or symplast, water will flow because of the water potential gradient values only. So if water is flowing from soil to the root xylem, that simply means the free energy of the water molecules present in the soil is higher than the free energy of the water molecules that is present in the root xylem. So the movement is dependent on the gradient and it is along the concentration gradient. So epiplastic movement does not provide any barrier to the movement, because the living substances, the cytoplasm, the cell organelle, etc., nothing is present whenever the water is moving using the intercellular spaces and the cell wall. So this is very obvious property. So I guess I have explained all important points related to epiplastic pathway. Alright, is this okay? Kids, let me know if this much part is okay or not. So how about Abhirami, Angrila, Ariman, Rohit, letting me know, Ankita, letting me know what exactly you are feeling right now. Is whatever I taught you is perfect, crystal clear or not? If not, do let me know in the chat section. So meanwhile, okay, Ariman is saying clear. Thank you very much, Ariman, for letting me know that. Now this is a very important line which is actually given in your NCERT and might confuses you or troubles you. So here I am going to explain you this important conceptual line given in epiplastic pathway with a very simple diagram. But not to forget, students, this line actually belongs to, yeah, thank you, Ariman, for letting me know that this line actually belongs to, my kids, to transpiration pull, right? So this concept is actually in detail discussed in a transpiration pull, but also given here in the epiplastic system. So let me help you out, although I'm going to explain there also, but let me help you out here too. So let me change the ink, I guess. So for example, my kids, this is the leaf, right? And here you have leaf xylem in which water molecules are present, right? Similarly, this leaf must be connected to a stem, and in stem also you will have stem xylem where the water will be present like a continuous stream. Finally, the stem will be connected to the roots, right? And the roots will have root xylem. So what am I trying to make over here? Very important, just pay attention and you will come to know. So this is what this portion represent to the stem xylem. This portion represent to the stem xylem. This portion represent to the leaf xylem. This portion represent to the leaf xylem. Now this portion represent to the root xylem. This portion represent to the root xylem. Now what happens during daytime? During daytime, water molecules will actually evaporate in form of vapors and will skip from the leaf xylem into the atmosphere, into the surrounding atmosphere, right? So this is what happens during transpiration process. I guess this is not visible to you. Yeah, so let me make this again. What is this? This is the transpiration process. So what happens in a transpiration process? The water molecules will evaporate in form of vapors. So if this particular molecules, my dear students, if this particular molecule will actually evaporate and skip, what will happen? There will be creation of a tension over here, because of which now the surrounding next water molecule, the surrounding next water molecules will be pulled, so that the surrounding, the just next water molecule will actually take place of this water molecule. Why? Because, let me zoom out in case you are unable to see this portion. So see here, kids. Yeah, so if this particular water molecule actually skips out, what will happen? This water molecule which is present just below it will take its place. Similarly, if this will evaporate, it will take this place. So similarly, there will be what? The water molecules will be pulled up because of this transpiration process, and this is exactly what is known as transpiration pull. So this negative pressure gradient, or this decrease in free energy of the water molecules, because the water molecules or the free water molecules are now escaping in form of water vapors during transpiration pull, what will happen? Tension will be created in the leaf, and this tension will actually be carried or transported into the stem xylem. Similarly, this tension will be transported into the root xylem, and because of this tension reaching to the root xylem, what will happen? The water will be pulled up. There will be mass flow of water. 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 So when this tension, which is created because of the loss of water molecules in transpiration process, when this tension actually reaches from leaf to the stem to the root, what will happen? There will be mass flow of water and minerals from root to the leaf with the help of two very important properties of the water, that is cohesion and The adhesion. What is cohesion? When two water molecules attract each other, this is because of the cohesion force. And you remember, these water molecules need to travel in a pipe-like structure known as the trachea element, the xylem, right? The vessels, right? Specifically talking about the tracheates and vessels, the water needs to climb up. So water can climb up only because of two things if they are present, right? One water molecule should pull the another water molecule because of the cohesion force, and similarly the surfaces of the trachea elements, that means the xylem and tracheates, they should also attract the water molecules with the help of adhesion, with the help of adhesive force, right? So because of this adhesive forces, what will happen? Water along with the minerals will try to climb up, will try to reach up. So during transpiration process, there is a transpiration pull created, because of which mass flow of water take place from roots to the leaves with the help of two very important properties of water, that is cohesion and adhesion. And that's exactly what my kids written over here. So now let me show you how that was. Let me read out for you. Yeah, so as you can see, as water evaporates, now I'm reading this, I have done all this explanation, I took this all time to explain you this line, this paragraph, so that whenever you will read NCERT after my lecture, that is something you got to do, my kids. After attending this lecture, you need to read the NCERT, where you need to understand this entire paragraph, right? And here I am explaining, I have already explained you, now I'm reading the line in order to help you in correlate with the diagram. So as water evaporates into the intercellular spaces, like this, intercellular space, because water will evaporate and form a vapor with the help of the stomata, right? Spaces or the atmosphere, tension develops in the continuous stream. So you can see, what is this? This is a continuous stream of water, the epiplast, right? So water actually reaches from root xylem to the stem xylem to the leaf xylem via stem xylem with the help of this epiplastic pathway, where there is a continuous stream of water, right? So the tension develops in the continuous stream of water in epiplast, and hence mass flow of water take place from roots to the leaf due to the adhesive and cohesive properties of water. I am using the same, okay, Angrila, but if I am not mistaken, please correct me. In open board, we cannot use the presentation. We need to use the PDF option. Is that something that I don't know? Please let me know in detail. Yeah, so I guess it's the PDF we can use. So if something that I don't know, please let me know. I would love to learn from you, Angrila. So next thing that we need to discuss over here is, yeah, so I am done. So that's exactly what I'm doing. Angrila. Thank you for letting me know that. Now students, listen this very carefully. So till now we have covered the whole discussion on epiplastic movement of water. So till now we understood that once the water is inside the root hairs, it was free to move either via epiplast or symplast in order to travel deep into the root layers and finally reaches to the root xylem, right? So water can either use the epiplast as well as the symplast. I have already explained you, if water is going to take the epiplast pathway, how the movement will be and what are the characteristics of the epiplast pathway. We have covered it, right? Now let us see if the water, after entering into the root hairs, decides to take a symplastic system or symplastic pathway in order to cross the cortex, endodermis, pericycle, and finally reach to the root xylem, how exactly the symplastic water movement will look like and what it is actually comprised of. So whenever the water is using the symplastic system of pathway, exactly what substances or the path it is using. So yeah. Yes, exactly. Thank you, Angrila, and that's exactly what I am doing. So see here, students. So what are we going to do is we will understand what symplastic system is. So symplastic system of pathway is a system of interconnected protoplast, right? So this is a protoplast of cell 1. This is protoplast of a cell. So this is a protoplast, as you can see. Let me use a red color ink over here, my kids. So this is the protoplast of a cell present in endodermis. This is a protoplast of a cell that is present in a cortex. So the protoplasts are actually connected to each other with the help of a strip or a strand of cytoplasm that is present into the plasmodesmata. So here is the plasmodesmata connection present, which actually connects the protoplast of one cell to the another one. So what is symplastic system? It is a system of interconnected protoplast where the protoplasm of one cell is connected to another with the help of a strand of cytoplasm present in plasmodesmata. So these are the plasmodesmatal connection that actually helps to connect the protoplasm of the adjacent cell and hence forming a continuous system of symplastic pathway, right? And that is what I have written over on the slide as well. So neighboring cells are connected through cytoplasmic strand that extends through plasmodesmata, right? Now let us see in detail about the symplastic movement of water. So whenever a water decides to use symplastic movement of water in order to reach from epidermis to the root xylem, that means this time the water needs to travel through the cells using plasmodesmata connection. Yes, because this is the only way using which the water can cross from or travel from one cell to another. Second, the movement will be relatively slower and will be down the potential gradient, and it may be added by cytoplasmic stream. So before jumping on the explanation of these points, let us try to focus on this diagram first. So as I told you, earlier we were focusing on the darker shade of the brown to understand epiplast pathway. Now I request you to focus on this lighter shade of the brown in order to understand the symplastic movement of water. Now see students, the lighter brown color is present here. That means the cytoplasm or the protoplasm of the cell actually represent to the symplastic movement of water. Now as you can see, whenever the water will decide, along with the minerals will decide to use the symplastic movement of water, first of all the water needs to cross the membrane. It is the outermost covering, right, of the protoplast. So first water need to cross the cell membrane, then it will reach to the cytoplasm, right? Finally it will cross the entire cytoplasm and then try to reach to the another cell with the help of this plasmodesmata connection, will cross its membrane, then further try to travel all along its cytoplasm, then again will cross or will again try to reach to the another cell with the help of plasmodesmata connection, then reach to the cytoplasm of the endodermis, and similarly likewise it will finally reach to the root xylem. So whenever water is using the symplastic movement of water, that means water is crossing the cell membrane or plasma membrane and is actually traveling through the cytoplasm, right? And this is exactly what was not happening when water was using the epiplastic movement of water. There the water and minerals were actually moving with the help of the intercellular spaces and the cell wall spaces where such living material was not present, and hence the movement was relatively faster in comparison to the symplastic, because lot of I can say the substances are present. The cytoplasm, the protoplasm of the plant cell have large cell sized vacuole, nucleus, right, the other cell organelle as well. So what are these? These cell organelles are going to provide resistance to the movement of water when it will try to flow or pass across or move across the protoplasm of these cells, right? So hence we say that movement is relatively slower in comparison to the epiplast, and it is down the potential gradient. That means it is a long concentration gradient, and this is something that I explained you when I was actually explaining you the epiplastic pathway. Remember my kids, there also I told you, what did I tell you? I tell you whether it is epiplast or symplast, if water is moving from point 1 to point 2, For example, the point 1 is the epidermis cell and point 2 is the root xylem. So water along with the symplast also will move from point 1 to point 2 only when there is a pressure gradient, where P1 is at a higher pressure value and P2 is a lower pressure value. Only then the symplastic movement will take place. So movement will be strictly along the concentration gradient, down the potential gradient, where water will flow from a region which is at a higher free energy of water molecules, or it has higher number of free water molecules, or it has higher water potential value, to a region like a root xylem where the water potential value is actually, or it is a region of lower water potential, or it has a lower free energy of water. Next, the symplastic movement of water can also be aided or helped with the help of a cytoplasmic streaming. And such kind of a cytoplasmic streaming you can easily observe in a hydrilla leaf, where the movement of chloroplast actually take place with the help of cytoplasmic streaming. So such kind of a movement can easily be seen in a hydrilla leaf where chloroplast move with the help of cytoplasmic streaming. So that's all I wanted to explain from symplastic movement of water. Now, my kids, the time has come to let us conclude this point, right? So remember, from where did we start it? We were actually discussing how, I repeat myself, please pay attention kids here, I was actually trying to explain you how water will be absorbed by roots, so that water can be transported from soil solution to the root xylem, right? So once I told you the absorption will be majorly with the help of mainly the structure that are responsible for absorbing water from the soil are the root hair cells. Once inside the root hair cells, the water can either take epiplast or symplast pathway in order to reach, or in order to travel deep into the layers of the root in order to reach to the root xylem. It can be either to epiplast, it can be either the symplast. So water can either use epiplast pathway or symplast pathway depending upon the water potential gradient values that are present in these two pathways. If the water potential gradient is more in epiplast, water will prefer epiplast, right? And that's exactly what you need to understand on this slide, that water actually, the movement or flow of water in roots, right? That means from soil to root xylem, water mainly get transported with the help of epiplast. And believe me here, because of the cortical cells which are loosely packed and offer no resistance. Since the cortical cells that forms the major portion of the root layers, right, the root layers, since these cortical cells are loosely arranged, hence they provide enough intercellular spaces as well as the cell wall spaces that is available for epiplastic movement of water. Because of this, the movement of water from soil solution to root xylem is majorly because of the epiplast pathway. That's the conclusion you got to remember. Next, but one very important thing, although almost or majority of the water from soil along with the minerals, the water majorly uses the epiplastic pathway to reach the root xylem, but with an exception on the endodermis. Remember, the cells of the endodermis has Casparian strips, the suberized strips, which is impervious to water. The substance suberin is impervious to water. So exceptionally, when the water reaches to the cells of endodermis, the water movement or movement of water, or the water molecules along with the minerals, are actually bound to leave the epiplastic pathway, and they strictly follow the symplastic pathway in order to reach to the root xylem. They have no other option, because the presence of the suberized Casparian strips do not allow water molecules to cross the layer of endodermal cells with the help of epiplastic pathway, because the intercellular spaces and the cell walls are actually blocked from the radial and the tangential wall side of the endodermal cells, and hence the water really can't move with the help of epiplast pathway. So exceptionally, although the system of epiplast is continuous throughout the plant, throughout the roots, but exceptionally at the endodermis layer, the water need to leave its epiplastic pathway and strictly follow the symplastic one in order to reach to the root xylem. So I really hope students, now whatever is written over on slide as well as in your NCERT will be crystal clear to all of you. And see, here also you can see the symplastic pathway and epiplastic pathway are very clearly shown in this diagram. So what is symplastic? As I told you, water can either flow with the help of symplast pathway or epiplast pathway depending upon the water potential gradient values. So if water uses the symplastic pathway, the water will actually flow inside the cell and finally reaches to the root xylem. And if it is using epiplastic pathway, that means it will try to move along the side of the cell. And finally, when it comes to the endodermal layer, cells of the endodermal layers, it is actually forced to leave the epiplast pathway and converts its epiplastic pathway into the symplastic one in order to reach to the root xylem. So this is all I wanted to explain on this slide. So I hope students, each and every line is clear to all of you. Now you have given me enough. Let me read out to your responses now. Okay, so Angrila says, thank you, Angrila. I will consider this suggestion. Ariman is saying, Ariman, the videos on recombinant DNA technology will come in future. Angrina, please teach botany daily in YouTube. Yeah, I'm trying to do that. Harish is saying, ma'am, I'm a student of Sri Chaitanya offline due to COVID. Colleges are closed and I want to join online IELTS programs. Sure, Harish, sure. So I request you, Harish, to log on or just type on Google infinitylearn.com and you will reach to our website where you will come to know the type of courses that we offer over here. So I request you to consider checking out infinitylearn.com website. Okay, next is, yeah, okay. So Angrina is saying chloroplast is a green pigment. No, Angrila, actually let me correct this out. Chloroplast is a cell organelle. It's a name of a cell organelle where chlorophyll is actually a pigment. And if you remember, inside a chloroplast there are two structures. One is the matrix part, right? The stroma part, and another is the lamellar part, that means the grana part, which is comprised of the thylakoids. Thylakoids are actually stacked one over the another and form the thylakoid. So it is the membranes of the thylakoid where the chlorophyll pigment is actually present, right? And because of this, which part's green color, right? I hope, Angrila, your doubt is clear over here. Hello, Sumila, very warm welcome. You people are asking me questions from cell. So cell is the one, the entire chapter was taught by Suchita ma'am in the last two classes. So I request you check out the Chak botany series, and I am pretty sure all your doubts will be cleared over here. So let me tell you, the entire cell chapter has been covered on Infinity Learn YouTube channel in this Chak Day series. So do consider checking out those. So okay, I guess you people are helping each other. Thank you. So now I would love to, so is this much whatever I have explained you is all clear? Let me know, all my dear students who are active right now. I want you to let me know whether this much is clear or not. Is this much clear, everybody? Angrila, Ariman, Sumila, Rohit, let me know, is this much clear? Ankita. So now next that we need to understand is, yeah, thank you Sumila for letting me know that. Now let us see the movement of water inside the xylem. In this, let us see a few more important. So I have been explaining this movement of water inside the root xylem. So we have till now covered or discussed about the apoplast and symplast pathway. There are few more important points that are given in your NCERT on this topic. Let us try to discuss them. First, in young roots, water enters directly into the xylem vessels or the tracheids. What this line is trying to say, actually when the plant is actually very young, at that point of time the cortex cells are the one that are generally not produced over that time. So there is actually presence of the xylem, right? Hence the water directly get transported from the epidermis into the xylem vessels when cortical cells are not present in a or yet to be developed in a young root, right? And what are these xylem vessels? These are the non-living components that forms the part of apoplast pathway. Not to forget students, in root xylem, then water needs to be transported from root xylem to leaf xylem to via the stem xylem. So in all this xylem, it is the vessels as well as the tracheids which are the non-living components of the xylem tissues, which helps in apoplastic movement of water from roots to the leaves through the stem, right? I hope this much is clear. Next. Okay. Thank you Sumila. I am trying to complete this chapter as of now. Thank you very much for the comments. Okay, so now let us talk about one very important association known as mycorrhiza. Now kids, listen this very carefully. So there are some plants. Yeah, thank you. So there are some plants actually. Let me complete this mycorrhiza point and then I will come and check out the chat box. So let me finish this portion. After explaining about the mycorrhiza, the entire the topic of how water is absorbed by the roots will be completed. So let me complete this out and then I will give answer to your questions in the chat box. Now listen this carefully students. There are some plants in which a special association, a special relationship, a symbiotic relationship exists in the root system along with the fungi. Such kind of symbiotic or such kind of mutualistic relationship that exists between the root system and fungi are known as mycorrhiza. So mycorrhiza are such association present in some plant root system where exactly this mycorrhiza helps in absorption of water and minerals, right? So what is mycorrhiza? It is a symbiotic association of a fungus with a root system, specifically talking about the roots of higher plants. So not to forget students, what exactly happens? It is fungi, and fungi will have its fungal filaments. So in this mycorrhiza type of association, the fungi actually with the help of its fungal filaments will either form a network around the young roots or will try to penetrate inside the root cell. So in this diagram, what are these? These are the fungal filaments. So these fungal filaments, now this is the zoomed out portion of the fungal filament, but exactly on the roots system, this is how the association will look like. So either these fungal filaments will try to enter inside the young root cells or either they will form or they will be present around the young roots or they will try to penetrate inside the root cell. So these are the two ways in which the fungal partner of mycorrhiza can form an association with the root system. So either the fungal filament will try to enter inside the cells of the epidermis of the roots, right? Or they will form a network, just instead of entering, just form the network around the root hair. So this is depending upon whether the mycorrhiza is endomycorrhiza or whether it is an active to mycorrhiza. So depending upon the type of mycorrhiza, this variation will come. But what you need to understand is the fungal filaments will form a network either around or inside the roots of the higher plants. And what are they going to do? They will actually absorb water and minerals from a larger volume of soil. How do they do so? Very simple. The filaments, the fungal filaments has actually a quite large surface area. So they are actually spread in the soil to a very large area. Hence, they are capable of absorbing water and minerals from a larger volume of water, which otherwise is not that easy for the roots of the higher plants to do so. Hence, in this association, it is a mutualistic, it is a symbiotic association where both the partners, fungus will give benefits to roots of the higher plants, as well as the roots will provide benefits to the advantages to the fungus. So till now I have explained you what are the advantages or the benefits the fungus will provide to the root system, where I told you the fungal filaments will absorb the water and minerals from a larger volume of soil. Now let us see how exactly the fungal filaments are benefited from the roots one. So what happens, the roots actually provide sugars and nitrogen containing compounds which are required for the growth of the fungal filaments, right? So this is a mutualistic relationship. This is a symbiotic relationship that exists in some plants known as mycorrhiza, where this association is present between the fungi and the roots of the higher plant, where fungi provides water and minerals, and the plant or the roots plant body to the fungi provides sugars and the nitrogen containing compounds. So this is how both benefit each other. And why are we reading it, studying it under this section? Because remember, we are studying about how roots absorb water, how water along with the mineral is transported from the soil to the root xylem. Hence, and this is mycorrhiza, this is also helps to do the same thing. They help the root system to absorb water and minerals so that they can enter inside the plant cell and then reaches into the root xylem, and then further can be transported to the leaf xylem via stem xylem. And hence, this topic becomes important to be discussed under this session. So I really hope this much is clear to all of you. Alright, now last point under this mycorrhiza that we need to discuss is, in some plants this mycorrhizal association becomes obligate. Obligate means without any exception, you got to have it, right? So for example, seeds of pinus tree, which is a type of a gymnosperm, seeds of pinus tree will not be able to germinate until and unless they establish a relationship, a symbiotic relationship with the fungal filaments, right? So hence, without the presence of mycorrhiza, the seeds of the pinus cannot germinate, and such kind of dependence, such kind of obligate dependence is seen in some plants such as the pinus, where the pinus seed is unable to germinate in the absence of mycorrhiza. So for pinus to germinate, for pinus seed to germinate, they got to have an association with the mycorrhiza, and pinus seed germination is one of the example where the mycorrhiza is the most very important and essential association required. It is obligatory relationship of a mycorrhiza, right? I hope this much is clear to all of you. Next. So yeah, till now we have discussed in detail how exactly water will be absorbed along with the minerals from the soil solution and will be transported to the root xylem. Here comes the next objective, my students. Here comes the next objective. Now we need to understand how this water molecule will be transported from root xylem to the stem xylem. So this is what we need to understand in this third part of this lecture, where we will talk about water movement up a plant. That means, let us see what are the forces that are responsible for movement of the water up a plant, that is from root xylem to leaf xylem via stem xylem. via stem xylem. So ultimately the water need to reach to the leaf xylem. So ultimately water along with the minerals need to be absorbed first and then transported to the root xylem, then transported in the stem xylem, and finally need to reach to the stem xylem. So this is what this much. So my kids, please notice this much portion or this much transport of water from the root hair cells to the root xylem has already been considered, has already been discussed in the class. Now let us try to understand how water will move from this portion to this portion. This is the objective of the next 20 to 25 minutes. Okay, so let me see what exactly you people are trying to ask me over here. Okay, so okay. So Sumila is saying, thank you for conducting online classes in English so that I can improve my English pronunciation. Thank you very much for the appreciation. Okay. 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 Fine. Hello Subiksha. Hello Subiksha. Yeah, you are not regular. No issues. Yes, I do remember you, Subiksha. Why will I not? I always remember my students. If you once also come in my class, I will definitely remember that. So, I hope the entire topic of how water is absorbed is clear. Now, let us jump into the detail of how water is actually will be moving up, right? So, remember students, as you can see in this diagram as well, the two forces responsible for movement of water up a plant is first the root pressure and another is the transpiration pull, which acts like a suction pressure, right? Now let me tell you students, these are the two things that we will discuss. What are the two things that we will discuss in this topic? In this topic there are two forces that we need to discuss. One is the root pressure, one is the root pressure, and another one that we need to discuss in this class is the transpiration pull. Simple. Okay. Now, so let me tell you in advance before explaining you in detail what root pressure and transpiration pull is. Let me tell you students, it is actually the transpiration pull which is majorly responsible for transporting the water molecules from root xylem to leaf xylem via stem xylem, and hence it is like agreed by most of the scientists, majority of the scientists, that water is actually pulled during the ascent of sap. So majorly water is moving up a plant because of this transpiration pull, and where the root pressure is actually at max try to re-establish the continuous stream of water into that epiplastic pathway present in the xylem inside a plant. So root pressure is not the major force. Root pressure is not the major driving force or the factor that is responsible for moving water up. It is rather the transpiration pull. So now we are ready to understand what root pressure is, how root pressure is caused, and what are the effect of root pressure, and then we will see what is a transpiration pull and why transpiration pull is the major and root pressure is not the major force for transporting water. Hello Urshita, you are a new student. Yes, I know that. Very warm welcome Urshita. Now let us try to understand this point. So Urshita, whatever you have missed out, I request you to see the recording and try to understand whatever I have explained you. And in case you are not clear with any of the concept that I have already explained, you do consider joining my next session. There you can ask your doubt in the chat box and I would love to address them, right? Yeah. All my students in this class are very warm welcoming. They are actually welcoming each and every student. That is so nice to see. But now the time has come to focus on the concept. Now everybody focus on the concept. The very important concept that we need to discuss is first the root pressure. Yeah, thank you. So listen this carefully, students. What is root pressure? We need to understand three things over here. What is root pressure? How is root pressure caused? And what is root pressure responsible for doing? Alright, so there are three things. What is root pressure? How root pressure is created? Alright, and third, what is the effect? What is the effect that root pressure or the role that root pressure play inside a plant body? Now, everybody now focus on the concept. Very important thing I'm going to teach you, and please note this thing, like this is root pressure. What is a root pressure? How it is created is generally a pain point of the students. At many of the students, majority of the students still struggle. Even on the exam day or on the D day, they are really not clear what exactly a root pressure is. So here I am making this concept crystal clear in a very simplified manner. So I request you all to pay attention. So see, students, first of all, let us talk about the condition. When is the root pressure going to develop? Root pressure will develop, my kids, when rate of absorbing water from soil solution by the root hairs is actually higher in comparison to the rate at which the water is lost from the leaf surface in form of vapor during the transpiration process. So when water is absorbed at a higher rate and lost at a very slow rate, what will happen? Now you know you're continuously trying to push the resource, continuously trying to push water from one end, and from the other outlet from where the water was supposed to come out, the speed is very low. Or maybe you can think as if the pipe is actually blocked over here. So let me try to draw it like this. So consider this is the epiplastic pathway. Consider, my kids, this is what? Yeah. So this is the soil solution where water is present. And this is the epiplastic pathway of the xylem from root to the leaf, right? So imagine the roots are actively absorbing water. The roots are actively busy in absorbing water, but a very minute amount or maybe no transpiration is taking place from the leaf. So whenever the rate of absorption of water is high and rate of transpiration or loss of water in form of vapor is low, what will happen? The water molecule will start getting accumulating here in the root xylem. Now you must be thinking why they are just accumulating in the root xylem, because remember, my kids, if you do not forget, I told you there is a continuous stream of water, right? So this water which is present in the root xylem will be pushed up only and only when there is a place for this water molecules to move up. If water molecules from the leaf will escape out in form of vapor, only then there will be a tension created, only then there will be a space created for another water molecules to take place, and then only the tension will be passed on to the root xylem via stem xylem, and then the water will be pulled up, right? But now imagine a situation where the transpiration rate is almost zero, very less, very negligible. The water is not getting lost. So whatever new and extra water molecules that are entering with the help of absorption from the root hair cells, they will finally start getting accumulating in the root xylem. And because of this accumulation of the water molecules in the roots, a positive pressure get developed known as root pressure. Now I've given you an idea about what root pressure is. Now let us talk about, and I've also explained you the reason why root pressure is getting built, because of the accumulation of the water molecules in the root xylem. Why the water molecules are getting accumulated? Because water is absorbed, keep on getting absorbed by the root hair cells, right? At a required speed, but the water is actually not getting lost in form of vapor from the leaf. So as a result, a lot of water is getting accumulated into the root xylem, right? And also remember, students, there is one more force that is actually helping in accumulating more lot of water into the root xylem, is the presence of the or absorption of the solute. So the active absorption of the solute, here please note the active word actually responsible. Okay, where is the active? Yeah, so the active word is actually indicating to both speed as well as ATP, right? So solutes, you remember, all the solutes are not going to be absorbed passively, some via passive, some via active. So both, either the solute is getting absorbed with the help of expenditure of some ATP, or it is getting absorbed via a diffusion process, right? So I mean to say via passive transport. So either it is passive or it is active, and because of this highly speedily absorption of the minerals from the root hair cells, right? So the water along with the minerals will try to enter inside the root hair, and what will happen? There will be creation of, very sorry for the background music, I can't control that. So please note, students, because of this active absorption of minerals, there will be creation of a greater amount of water potential gradient, Now this additional water potential gradient that has been created, why? Because of this active absorption of solute molecule will further help in accumulating more and more water into the root xylem. Because not to forget, students, water actually moves from a region of higher water potential to a region of lower water potential, and wherever there will be more solute or accumulation of the solute, the free energy of the water will decrease. That region will become less, the water present in that region will be at a lower water potential. So by the active absorption of solutes, due to accumulation of solute into the root cells, what will happen? The water potential value of the water present in the root will go further down, and hence more and more water will be absorbed by the root hair cells, and as a result there will be accumulation of the water into the root xylem that will lead into the creation of this positive hydrostatic pressure in the xylem known as root pressure, right? That's exactly what is written over here on the slide. Now let me read out for you the whole explanation of these points I have done in this diagram. Now let me read out the points for you. These are, so what is root pressure? It develops when rate of absorption is higher than the rate of transpiration, when water enters and accumulates into the root xylem due to water potential gradient, which is also contributed by active transport of various ions, and it is a positive hydrostatic pressure in the xylem. Right? Now let us talk about, my kids, the importance of root pressure. So root pressure is responsible for pushing water. It is a positive hydrostatic pressure, and it is responsible for pushing water upwards, right, against the gravity, but to a very small height. Especially its effect is more profound or more effective. The effect of root pressure can be seen very nicely only when a plant is of short height, like in herbaceous plant, right? When the stem length is quite less, then the effect of root pressure or the movement of water up due to root pressure can be seen. But in tall trees like eucalyptus tree, like the neem tree, etc., that you see, the majority of the plants, it is the transpiration pull which is responsible for transporting water from root xylem to the leaf xylem. So in majority of the plants, majority of the tall plants, root pressure ATMAX helps in re-establishing the continuous stream of water present in the epiplast of the xylem that I also showed you on the previous slide. So what is this, student? This is a continuous stream of water that need to be present, and that might get, it is actually exposed to high tension because of the transpiration. Remember, if whenever the leaf or the surrounding environment will be such that the rate of transpiration will be quite high, what will happen? The leaf xylem, the water present in the leaf xylem will be under the tension, right? And the tension will be transported from stem to the root xylem. So whenever the water molecule whenever the water is getting getting transpired at a high rate from the leaf, it is a chance that the continuous stream of the water in the epiplast of the xylem might get broken, right? So what this root pressure is doing at max, this root pressure is responsible for re-establishing this continuous chain of water in the xylem, which often breaks due to enormous tension created by transpiration. So at max, what they do is they re-establish this continuous. So as soon as this particular water actually escapes into the atmosphere in form of vapor, because of this root pressure, you can see the next water molecule will take place, the next water molecule will take place, the next position, the next will take place, the another position. So in this whole tension that is created into the leaf and stem xylem, that can actually break this continuous stream of water, this root pressure will make sure that this continuous stream do not breaks up. So it keeps on adding water molecules, in this continuous epiplastic stream of water in xylem. Alright, my kids. Right. So it is responsible for pushing water to the small height in the stem. It do not play a major role in the overall process of water movement up a tall trees. Next thing, my students, is guttation. So see, what happens is the effect. So this phenomenon is because of the root pressure. So the effect of root pressure can easily be seen in plants, especially the one which are herbaceous or small in size. So the effect of root pressure can be seen, and what happens, especially you can see the effect of root pressure specifically in early morning or at the night, where you can see the water molecules actually lost in form of droplets, right? So what is guttation, right? So it is a phenomenon where root pressure is responsible for loss of excess water in form of droplets at night or in early morning from special openings of vein near the tips of grass blades or leaves of many herbaceous plants. So what is guttation? Guttation is actually a phenomenon. Now listen this very carefully. Guttation is a phenomenon where water is actually lost not in form of vapor but in form of droplets, right? And this effect is seen specifically during the night or during the early morning, right? And not to forget, such kind of water loss is because of the root pressure, because remember, because of this root pressure there was accumulation of lot of excess amount of water which was supposed to be transpired, which was supposed to be lost in transpiration process. But if you note, during like in early morning or at night, the sun is not present, the light is not that much, right? So the temperature is low, hence the rate of transpiration is quite insignificant, or rate of transpiration is quite low. Hence whatever the water that the roots have absorbed in excess, that is lost in form of the droplets. So guttation is a phenomenon that takes place because of the root pressure and can be seen during night or early morning, where transpiration rate is actually low and the plant loses this excess water in form of droplets. Next, now let us see what are the favorable conditions in which the guttation can take place. In MCQ question, you can get these condition as an option. So remember, whenever there is an active absorption of water by roots, this active absorption means at a fast rate the water is getting absorbed. Especially it takes place in herbaceous plant which are of smaller height, because root pressure is more significant in such when there is no or almost insignificant amount of transpiration is taking place, and because of which only excess water will get accumulated and which will be lost in form of droplets. It is seen at night or during early morning, because yes, at that time only the rate of transpiration is quite low, and it takes place in a humid condition. Not to forget students, humid condition is the one which is also responsible for low transpiration. So humid condition means low transpiration. So whenever the transpiration rate will be low, the guttation can be seen, and it is because of the sufficient root pressure. So sufficient root pressure should be present in order for losing the water in form of droplets during guttation process, because it is the force which is responsible for creating it. I hope students now the entire root pressure, what is root pressure, how this root pressure is created inside plant body, and what at max it is responsible for doing is crystal clear to all of you. And also how root pressure is responsible for creation of guttation, or responsible for this phenomenon guttation, is also crystal clear to all of you. Let me know in the chat box whether this whole root pressure topic is clear or not. I'm waiting for your response, kids. Now what is going on in the chat section? So whose birthday is this? So it's Sumila's? Oh, okay, now I'm not getting whose birthday is this. Okay, it's Urshita's birthday. Happy birthday, by the way. Okay. So you people have started playing on the chat, but I will really appreciate if you will concentrate on the lecture as well. So tell me, were you able to understand the lecture, or you were just playing on the chat? Tell me, my kids. Is it clear? So Angrila, Urshita, Sumila, Aryaman, what are you guys doing? Tell me, is this clear? Did you really understand, or you were really busy in wishing Urshita happy birthday? So, okay, clear? Fine. Chalo. Let us see, the last thing that we need to discuss in this class is the transpiration pull. So as I told you students before starting this third part of this lecture, that is how water will be transported from root xylem to leaf xylem via stem xylem, that will be because of the two forces. One is the root pressure, another is the transpiration pull, where I told you root pressure is not the major force responsible for transporting water up against the gravity. Rather, it is the transpiration pull. So majorly water is pulled from the root xylem to the leaf xylem through stem xylem because of this transpiration pull. Now I want everybody to focus on this part. I want everybody to focus on this part. Yeah, please focus on this part, right? And see this, students, here if you notice, what is happening from this to this, water is getting absorbed, and finally from this root hair cell it is reaching to the root xylem. Now from root xylem till the stem xylem, the force that is responsible for pulling the water is the transpiration pull. So similarly, as you can see, the water, for example, that is present over here, it will be lost in form of vapor from the stomata. There will be creation of a vacuum over here. So water another water molecule will take its place, then another water molecule will take this water molecule's place. So similarly, water will be pulled one by one inside the xylem of the stem and then finally reach to the leaf xylem. So all this is what? All this movement of water, this pulling of water is taking place because of this transpiration pull. So according to this very important model, students, the cohesion, tension, transpiration, pull model, it is the most widely accepted model which actually explain how ascent of sap take place, how water along with the minerals is carried from root xylem to the leaf xylem with the help of this major force responsible for doing this movement, that is transpiration. That is what we need to discuss in the next class, right? So I hope students, everybody enjoyed this session. Let me tell you, as I told you, if we will have the time, we will discuss about ascent of sap, but I think already the class time is done, it's over. So what we will do is, my kids, I will continue this discussion on ascent of sap in the next class, where I will use the concepts that I have taught in this class. So it's my kind request, before joining the next class, do consider re-watching this video at least from the section where I was explaining the root pressure and the transpiration pull. So same concepts I will be using when I will teach you ascent of sap. So remember, movement of water up a plant is majorly due to the transpiration pull. That will be explained in detail in cohesion, tension, transpiration, pull model in the next class. Thank you very much for joining this class, students. Thank you very much, and I will really appreciate if you will join the next class as well. So that's all from this class. Thank you very much for joining this session. So yeah, that's all from this class, students. Thank you very much. And till now, if you haven't subscribed to Infinity Learn, it's my kind request, do consider subscribing to Infinity Learn by Sri Chaitanya and give me a thumbs up, and do not forget to hit the bell icon, right, so that every time whenever I will go live, you will be notified, right? Thank you very much. I will see you in the next class.